Hey everyone, welcome to episode 40 of Qore, presented by the PlayStation Network. I'm your host, Veronica Belmont. We know that sometimes gaming can be a solitary pursuit. That's why this month we are showing you a 4-person co-op game so fun, it's gonna knock the rocket boots right off your feet. That's right, it's time for Ratchet & Clank All for One. Our favorite gadgety duo is back, and they've brought some friends.
Help me, Lawrence!
Well, Nefarious may object to that whole friend label, but sometimes circumstances call for unlikely alliances.
You have to work together to do things, but you're also competing for loot.
There are video game writers, and then there's Amy Hennig. As writer and creative director of the blockbuster Uncharted series, Amy has given us some of the PS3's most memorable video game moments. And now with Uncharted 3 coming soon, her job is bigger than ever.
We start with the idea of saying, well, what would be awesome? What do we want to work on? What inspires us?
Also this month, we preview the Eco and Shadow of the Colossus collection, a bundle of 2 all-time greats remastered for the PS3. Among the many extras, you get a peek at the latest in the collection, The Last Guardian. Bryce Boltzmann is an undead demon hunter with a penchant for bad jokes in Never Dead.
I need a hand. Literally.
Hey, if you had a demon like this in your face,
Arrogant words are dripping with pride.
you'd need a sense of humor too. Tired of feeling like an office drone? Take a Blu-ray coffee break with Audrey.
That's right, Veronica. I've got all the best workplace comedies for all you 9-to-5ers out on Blu-ray.
I love Lamp. I love Lamp.
All this and more in episode 40 of Qore, presented by the PlayStation Network. I'll see you on the inside. Ratchet & Clank have been best buds forever, exploring their world side by side. But real-life friends had to take turns playing, until now.
Nice one, pal.
With the new Ratchet & Clank game, up to 4 pals can jump in as Ratchet, Clank, Quark, and Nefarious. Load up your combustor and follow us inside. It's one for all, and all for one.
I am on fire.
We visited Insomniac's North Carolina offices to speak with the team behind Ratchet & Clank All for One, just as they were wrapping up this electric adventure.
So Captain Quark has now somehow become president of the galaxy. He finds out that he's receiving this award, the Intergalactic Tool of Justice. Ratchet and Clank are escorting just to make sure that everything's okay.
I never even heard of an Intergalactic Tool of Justice award. Who did you say invited you?
I don't know. The guy was all cloak and dagger on the phone.
It turns out to be a big plot put on by Dr. Nefarious, and all heck breaks loose. Even Nefarious agrees that the only way he's going to get out of this is to kind of make it a temporary alliance.
Perhaps using your intelligence for good will yield better results.
All right, fine.
So this is definitely more of a cooperative style gameplay than a competitive style.
Absolutely. You have to work together to do things, but you're also competing for loot. You're competing for bolts, trying to see if you can get the new weapons, the fastest, upgrade your weapons. You know, there are conversations going back to the PS2 where we're like, man, we'd really like to see these characters together. You know, can we ever get Ratchet and Clank playable at the same time?
Did they ever?
We really started out with this game designing around big experiences that we want to play together with our friends. So we have everything from riding on the back of an enormous robot called a Guardian to battling a huge crustacean called the King Cepiad by throwing electric jellyfish into his mouths. And then from there, we developed co-op mechanics like throwing your friends into battle with a vacuum or tethering to one another that really made all the battles play out in a way that really caused you to have to lean on your friends instead of simply playing in parallel.
So you can play with people in your own home, but you can also play with people you may not know out on the internet.
Yes, I mean, we wanted to make sure that people can play the way they want. You can play with friends on the couch, or, like you said, you can play online in any combination.
Us robots have to stick together.
And if you want to play solo?
We wouldn't turn our backs on the player who just wants to play a single-player Ratchet game. We think that's great. And the way we handle that is to give your character an AI partner. So if you play as Ratchet, you get Clank, who folds up into the Clank pack from time to time, and then jumps off and wades into battle with you. Ratchet and Clank games are all about the weapons, and every character has a unique class-specific weapon. Ratchet can throw out a doppelbanger, which is a decoy and also a turret. Clank has his Zoni Ray, which lets him slow down time. Qore has the Quantum Deflector, with which he can shield himself or his friends. And finally, Dr. Nefarious, who's evil and sneaky, can turn invisible with his cloaker.
What would you say is one of your favorite weapons in the game?
I'm gonna have to go with the plasma bomb launcher. You know, it's a grenade launcher. It's a lobbed projectile, and I think of it as like the thinking man's weapon. It's like you can really survey the battlefield and root enemies out from behind cover with this thing, which fits my playstyle.
I've always really liked the critter strike, where you just use it and it turns a creature, an enemy, into a kind of cute little creature. It's a lot of fun because you can sort of turn all these bad guys into these creatures and they run around and once you upgrade it, they actually attack for you. I love the frost cannon, and so what it will do is it will freeze an enemy in place and they'll sort of be like stuck. And then you can just smash them with a wrench. I don't know if anyone doesn't like rocket launchers, and they're just like such simple, satisfying, explosive fun. And that's kind of my go-to.
Another one that's really cool that's totally new to the franchise, the Darkstar Fission Tether. If you use it together, you can actually form a tether, like an electric tether, and then we can run around and clothesline things, which I think is really cool. My next favorite from there is the Blitzer.
Let's see how you deal with the Blitzer.
Pretty much if you imagine like a supercharged football uniform. So you get big shoulder pads and you get some armor and you get a special rocket-powered boost. So you can target something and really just slam into them.
So this is a brand new weapon for Ratchet and Clank All for One. And with the Thunder Smack, you can create massive lightning storms by yourself. And if you use the Thunder Smack together with other players, the cloud grows even bigger, the damage grows even more. So like all other weapons in the game, it's got a cooperative layer on top of the single player layer. All weapons in All for One, I should mention, are fully upgradable, just like in past games. So as you play through and earn bolts, you're buying weapons, but you're also buying more ammo, the ability to deal more damage with a single shot, rate of fire increases, like all the classic upgrades are back in All for One.
The weapons and tools feed right into the puzzles, too.
One of the new gadgets for this game is called the Vacuum. And so it's a sort of a vacuum gun of sorts that can suck things up, including other players, which ends up being really fun. If there's something that you need to interact with that requires the vacuum, we don't really ever hide things like that. It's just a matter of figuring out what combination you need to interact with them in, and where other players need to go once you interact with them.
You've got to lean on friends to solve puzzles. Like here in the raft. Each player controls a jet to navigate as a team. Or with enemies that only strike in the dark, one player pulls a bright disc, another gathers crystals that keep it powered, and the rest can fight off attackers.
We've given players a lot of devices so they understand what we're trying to communicate. And this is everything from color coding for the heroes. You know, every hero has their own signature color, so you know at a glance if you're prompted to do something. Before you wade into battle, a pretty good idea of how the battle can play out and a good sense of what you can accomplish together with the team.
We must set aside our petty squabbles and act as a singular unit.
Ratchet and Clank All for One emphasizes frantic, fun multiplayer teamwork. You can go single player, but with friends, the action multiplies. Ridiculous and ridiculously powerful weapons are the cornerstone, creating explosive battles and challenging you with clever puzzles. And when you're jostling friends for the most bolts, it's quite all right to put an I in team. In fact, it's expected. There's a point in the Uncharted series when it hits you. Games really don't get much better than this. Cinematic and riveting. The Uncharted games have garnered a devoted fan base of PS3 gamers who cannot wait to step back into the boots of Nathan Drake. Behind our leading man, and the franchise as a whole, is one hard-working leading woman, Amy Hennig. On the brink of the release of Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception, Amy carved out some time to let us chart her rise to top dog creative director at Naughty Dog, with some insight on how she took Uncharted from concept to action-adventure masterpiece. Where does your gaming story really begin?
Well, I'm going to reveal my age here, unfortunately, but my gaming story begins when I was about 11, 12, 13, junior high age, and I was obsessed with going to the arcade. And then it was in 1989 when I got my first job actually making games.
So it wasn't something you went to college for, it was something you kind of came into a little bit later?
Again, back in the dark ages, there were no colleges for making games, right? No, I studied English Lit, and then after that went to film school. I got a job making an Atari 7800 game, and I was doing all the art and animation, and then I was able to make a portfolio with that and take it to Electronic Arts. And that was my light bulb moment where I realized there was an opportunity for way more sort of authorship and creative autonomy than there was maybe in the film industry that I had been sort of aspiring to.
What the hell? Get your hands up.
When did the shift come for you between art and animation into the writing area?
It was probably in 1996, I guess. I was a design manager at Crystal Dynamics for a year working with Silicon Knights on the first Blood Omen game, but not on the story. They really had that locked down. It was just working with them on the game design. And then I had my opportunity to be a director for the first time, and that's the game that became Soul Reaver ultimately. And there was nobody else to write it, you know, and I could kind of put a couple words together. I could try anyway. And so I just learned on the job, and I thought, well, I'll take a crack at it.
Over time, we became less human and more divine.
Amy's Naughty Dog story begins in 2003, when former colleague Evan Wells, now Naughty Dog's co-president, invited her to the design team of Jak 3.
You are hereby banished to the wasteland.
Jak? I did come in for Jak 3, and that was the one and only game I worked on. And it really is the brainchild of the people that were here before. It was an incredible experience, you know. It was a great learning experience, and we're all really proud of that game.
As Jak 3 was heating up PS2s round the world, news dropped of the forthcoming PlayStation 3. Amy and the Naughty Dog team would need to start thinking bigger picture for their next series.
We needed to look at the hardware and say, well, what can it do that we weren't able to do on the PS2? And obviously, the first thing that occurred to us is the fact that it could render characters and worlds in a much more authentic, genuine, believable way.
Where did the idea for the original Uncharted game come from?
We knew it would be third-person action-adventure, but we were looking at what everybody else was doing. And it seemed like there was a lot of cynical content out there, a lot of post-apocalyptic landscapes. And it felt like there was room for us to carve out territory. And one of our most beloved genres was the idea of the pulp action-adventure movies. The problem is it was really underserved in our medium. And I think it was maybe that it's a difficult genre to sort of honor in games, because once we set on that, we had to then decide that we needed to have a very relatable, affable, vulnerable real protagonist
You devil.
with a similarly real cast of supporting characters around him.
It's like a camera. You just point and shoot, right?
Good girl.
The original Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, met with rave reviews when it was released in 2007. But it was the phenomenal success of its sequel that firmly established Amy Hennig as a game changer. Were you surprised by the success of Uncharted 2?
We were completely surprised by the success, and I think we were so heads down working on the game and just so focused on what we wanted to accomplish that we didn't realize until even E3 what sort of response we were getting. Game development really is a sort of a massive collaborative act of faith over 2 years, which requires a lot of strength of character on your teammates, is you are working blind because everybody's working on their individual parts, and then it isn't almost until the 11th hour when you actually see those pieces sort of start to coalesce into a meaningful whole. And then to see it come out and get the sort of critical reception it got, I mean, it blows us away to this day.
I won't harm your precious boy. I merely want what's mine.
So getting into the game itself, what's going on in Uncharted 3? What can you tell us about the plot line?
I don't like to spill too much about the plot because I think most people out there now, if they're invested in the franchise, really want to make some discoveries for themselves. But, you know, I can tell you the broad strokes, which is, of course, that we decided, let's go to the desert this time, because we haven't done that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that was inspired by a story choice. Often the story has to be the most flexible thing. And so we start with the idea of saying, well, what would be awesome? What do we want to work on? What inspires us? And thinking about doing the capsizing cruise ship level, doing our cargo plane level that we showed behind the scenes at E3, and putting those pins in the board and saying, yes, that would be epic, let's do that. We then take the time and the creative energy to then say, yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out how to make this work. It's really humbling, I think, for us to realize how much affection there is for the characters we've created. I know it's very humbling for the actors as well. So we wanted to explore them more. We wanted to say, well, let's dig in and find out more about Drake and Sullivan and their background and, you know, how they became partners, and, you know, more with, you know, Chloe and more with Elena. But at the same time, you know, still taking you on this rollicking adventure with all these incredible action set pieces, you know, so it's like doing both, I think, is critical. Is, you know, all the visceral excitement doesn't matter if you're not telling a character-driven story.
It was a little hard to ignore the fact that Elena is wearing a wedding band in the trailer. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
I figure people would pick up on that. No, I won't tell you anything about that. You've got to play the game.
We'll trust Amy to know what's best for us on this one. However, when we pressed the industry visionary for secrets of her success, Hennig had this to say.
I always say that having a liberal arts education and studying Western civilization and literature really gave me a great foundation. When I have to do research for a new game, I'm not starting from a completely ignorant place, you know, but I think it also gave me a great love for language, and which I hope comes across in the writing. And then film school, you know, it gave me a little grounding in traditional animation, and the same thing with the film principles and film theory and editing and working with a team of people. I think all of those things gave me a great foundation. People always ask, you know, how do you get into the industry? And it's like, you stumble into it, apparently, because I didn't plan to do this. It's just always having the faith to take that next step and putting yourself out there and then seizing the opportunities when they come. Sometimes it's just the boldest moves in your life that end up being the best.
Eco, Shadow of the Colossus, The Last Guardian. Mention these names and gamers' ears perk up. Eco and Shadow of the Colossus are classics. The gameplay and simple but intense stories make them stand out even 10 years later. The follow-up from developer Sony Japan, The Last Guardian, promises the same thoughtful production. Experience them all in the Eco and Shadow of the Colossus collection. You get remastered versions of the PS2 classics, introducing them to the PS3 generation, along with a preview of The Last Guardian and other cool extras. Whether you played the originals or have yet to experience these haunting stories, they're a must-see on the PS3. The pensive, emotional game style in Eco and Shadow of the Colossus holds up to recent titles. They're all-time greats. In Eco, you're a horned boy locked away as a bad omen. Because, you know, the horns. But you quickly discover a trapped girl named Yorda and work together to escape. You can call out if she gets lost, grab her hand if she falls behind, and otherwise stick together to advance. You'll navigate puzzles to get through different rooms, and fight back spirits that try to take her away. Each small game element works together, creating a thoughtful experience from the simple parts. Shadow of the Colossus is full of big moments, starting with the premise itself. I mean, you're trying to bring a girl back to life. Your relationship is never spelled out. Is she your love, your sister, a really great friend? But your quest shows your devotion. You're tasked with killing 8 colossal beasts, some towering hundreds of feet over you. Kill the monster to advance? Well, that might sound like a typical game plot, but the real scope is much bigger. You have to keep trading the lives of these beautiful, often peaceful creatures for the life of your companion. This moral strain adds a unique sadness and weight. Sure, you get action, exploration, and excitement, but it's bittersweet. Don't worry about a heavy-handed update. This remastering keeps all of the original gameplay, story, and design. The graphical changes are easy to spot. It's now in widescreen at 1080p, so you have a bigger, sharper field of view. And the engine has been rewritten to reveal lost details. The textures are the same as the originals, but now you can see all of their nuance for the first time in HD. The low-res standard def TV output just couldn't show it all off. The PS3 can also keep a smooth frame rate now, even when you face off against a big-ass beast. And you can play both games in 3D. The audio track includes all of the moody music and effects from before, but now with 7.1 surround sound support. Both games offer new goals with dozens of trophies. Like in the originals, you can play a second time with more difficulty, or in Shadow of the Colossus, you can battle any creature. Go nuts! But for the first time in North America, a friend can control Yorda after you win Eco. And the extras just keep coming. A dynamic theme for each game customizes your cross-media bar. View concept art and movies, including one for Nico, the original idea for an online multiplayer game that was reworked into Shadow of the Colossus. After playing these 2 excellent adventures, we're excited to try the development team's upcoming 3rd game, The Last Guardian. It combines pieces of the other games, the AI partner from Eco, and the giant beasts from Shadow of the Colossus, into a story about a boy and his very unique creature. Built for the PS3, its powerful physics engine animates movements. You really see the characters and world come alive. Just look at those feathers. You'll bond with the creature to solve puzzles. It has a mind of its own, which is part of the fun. The Eco and Shadow of the Colossus collection includes an exclusive video peek into The Last Guardian, and making of details about the other 2 games, including a roundtable discussion with the creators. Eco and Shadow of the Colossus are 2 of the best games ever released. And we don't say that lightly. Hey, these are adventures big enough for the Smithsonian. Shadow of the Colossus will be on display there next year. We're a little envious of the gamers who get to experience the wistful, overwhelming stories for the first time, but we can't wait to play again. When the love of your life is slain by some demonic King Triton-looking freak show, what's the worst thing that could happen next? Having to live forever, that's what. Such is life for immortal demon hunter Bryce Boltzmann.
My story was just getting interesting, too.
The wisecracking hero you play in Konami's new bizarro third-person shooter by Oxford-based developer Rebellion. We hunted down the game's mortal master for the nitty-gritty on Never Dead. What is the storyline of Never Dead? What is Bryce trying to accomplish?
The story of Never Dead is actually a very sad story. 500 years ago, he challenged the Demon King to a battle, which he lost along with his beloved wife, and he was made immortal after this. He has kept fighting over 500 years. And the story takes place where he has vengeance upon the Demon King once again.
Once handsome, hitched, and one heck of a demon hunter, old Bryce is now grizzled, grieving, and just can't seem to keep it together.
Bryce has turned into a very sarcastic and cynical guy.
That's really, really funny.
Back in the day, he used to be a young man with a very strong sense of justice. Enough. And what we wanted to do is show these two different personalities of Bryce through the story of the game.
Our tragic hero's brooding demeanor does brighten on occasion to deliver some painful one-liners.
Inviting me back to your place, huh? Oh, this is a first.
Bearing the brunt of Bryce's unfortunate brand of humor is his partner in NADA, the National Anti-Demon Agency.
Quit that funny story.
Who exactly is Arcadia, and how does she throw her lot in with Bryce?
Arcadia is the heroine of the game. She actually is my type of girl. She's like a handler for Bryce.
Come on! You think that's funny?
Their relationship, though, has no romance in it ever, because he still is in love with his wife that he lost 500 years ago. And he jokes around in order to hide this. Arcadia knows his past, but she doesn't know his despair. So it's kind of a funny and interesting relationship.
Bryce, go open it from the inside.
One kind of banter they do in the game is whenever she tells him to shut up, she would just shoot him in the head, because she knows Bryce is immortal.
I will kill you.
I kind of personally like this relationship between the two. This might kind of seem funny and comical, but starting from the middle or end of the game, Bryce starts to get back his old self. And Arcadia starts seeing this and starts fighting alongside him. And they have a very strong sense of trust between each other.
Where the hell did you come from?
A side entrance.
In Never Dead, immortality is, needless to say, the name of the game, and is also the basis for a rather offbeat gameplay mechanic. Having the ability to lose one's limbs and toss them off into different directions, does that open up a lot of new opportunities for the developers making this game?
Through this game, I think we've introduced a new rule. These dismembered limbs can actually explode. So you can throw your arm into a group of enemies, and they all explode with it. One of the monsters that we have in the game is called a puppy. And when you throw your arm, they play fetch. They chase after the arm and they try to eat it.
To combat the myriad demon minions, you also gotta use your head.
You missed me!
In each level, you have to use immortality for almost everything that you do. In dark areas, there is no light or torch, so what Bryce would have to do is actually light himself on fire, and he becomes the light source. And you can proceed throughout the level.
It sounds like if you can use yourself as a torch, then your limbs are truly indestructible. Nothing can turn them to ash or make them disintegrate. You're pretty set in that area, right?
To tell you the truth, limbs do disappear in the game, and they can be lost or eaten, but Bryce is immortal. He can regenerate. He will have another arm come shooting out of his body. There is a disadvantage to being able to do this. You can only regenerate after a certain amount of time has passed.
Bryce's cringe-inducing wisecracks.
I need a hand. Literally.
A kooky cast of demons.
Your arrogant words are dripping with pride.
Some cool slow-mo moments. And the unique dismemberment mechanics give legs to what would otherwise be standard shoot-'em-up fare. Oh, and did we mention the soundtrack is all Megadeth? If you prefer a more mortal shooter, well, you did hear the title, didn't you? Never Dead's real virtues lie in just how wonderfully weird it is.
Hey guys, Audrey here with your September Blu-ray Spotlight. Labor Day is a special holiday celebrating the average Joe in all his workaday glory. To honor you office types, we're breaking out the end of summer laughs with the best workplace comedies out on Blu-ray. Cubicle Life got you down? The ultimate office antidote is back with Office Space Blu-ray Edition.
I just stare at my desk, but it looks like I'm working.
This story of a corporate employee who tries to get fired from his soulless job only to be showered with money and responsibility is required viewing for anyone who's ever been enslaved to a cube.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
And while the Blu-ray edition doesn't add a ton compared to previous releases, it's still more fun than, say, working on a Saturday.
I'm gonna need you to go ahead and come in tomorrow.
Make sure to check out the 5-part retrospective with creator Mike Judge, including interviews and commentaries with the cast, and to waste company time playing Office-inspired minigames such as Grab the Stapler and Printer Beatdown. Better yet, just skip work, kick back, and enjoy the hysterical pop-up trivia track, presented, of course, on Post-it notes.
In a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
Not all workplaces are confined to great corporate walls. Take Super Troopers, a roadside romp with the Vermont Highway Patrol played by the hilarious Broken Wizard comedy crew. The movie looks awesome in 1080p, and the Blu-ray version features all the commentary tracks from the original DVD, as well as an exclusive picture-in-picture visual commentary.
How many bottles do you think you took to the face?
Check out Featurette, a mockumentary that follows the film's inane cast of law enforcement officers. And if you want some real fun, speed over to Stupor Troopers, a trivia-based drinking game that's guaranteed to get you breaking all kinds of state laws. Warning, not recommended for on-duty highway patrolmen.
You boys like Mexico? Yeah!
What happens when you take the funniest actors in Hollywood, put them in a 1970s newsroom, and let them do whatever they want? Answer? You get Anchorman.
It is Anchorman, not Anchor Lady, and that is a scientific fact.
This film is one of the funniest workplace comedies ever, and the unrated 2-disc Rich Mahogany Blu-ray edition will have you snorting double the coffee out your nose.
My apartment smells of rich mahogany.
Disc 1 features both the theatrical and unrated extended cuts, as well as a laugh-out-loud commentary improvised by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay.
I love Lamp. I love Lamp.
Disc 2 is packed with bonus features including alternate takes, behind-the-scenes goofs, comedy sketches, cast auditions, table reads, rehearsal footage. There's so much here, your belly will ache from laughing. Disc 2 also includes a full-length movie called Wake Up Ron Burgundy, assembled from scenes that didn't make the original film.
Rip the lid off of it! Afternoon delight.
See, all it takes is a good one-liner to turn a crummy job into a barrel of laughs. Just watch out for the boss. I'm Audrey, and I'll see you next month with another Blu-ray Spotlight.
Thank you.